technical support for these webinar series from Ducks Unlimited Canada. And yeah, I want to welcome you all to the first 2023 webinar for the PHJV Policy Committee. And as Ian, I think, mentioned, if you can keep your videos off and obviously your mic's muted throughout the presentation, that would be helpful, as some people will be in low bandwidth areas. I guess many of you know, my name is John Pattison Williams, and I am the coordinator of the Prairie Habitat Joint Venture Policy Committee. And we're honored this morning to have Matthew Munson, who's a technician with the Dene Tha in Treaty 8 territory of Northern Alberta, to be speaking and sharing with us this morning on Indigenous protected and conserved areas. I've really enjoyed sort of working and hearing from Matt and other colleagues in Treaty 8 over the last few years. And yeah, he even came and spoke at one of my classes on this topic. So I know it's a good one. So Matt, feel free, take it away. And looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us this morning.
Great, thank you. Just doing a check. You can hear me okay? Yeah, great. Okay, yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really honored to have been invited to speak to you and share with you. I'm also interested in learning about what other people are doing in this space. So, you know, working in the environment for conservation and protection of species and kind of moving forward more cooperative and collaborative partnerships between Indigenous communities and government and not-for-profit and other people on the land, especially industry. Increasingly, we're seeing a lot more invitations to work with industry on, you know, making forest management practices better, making less impactful oil and gas developments, you know, making sure we're monitoring water for quality and suitability for, you know, fish and other benthic invertebrates and things like that. It's just really exciting. You know, I have been doing this for, oh geez, as a student at university for 5 years, and then working with my community for 12 now. I can't believe it's already 12 years. But just, you know, reflecting back on when I started to where we are now, you know, the world has changed. And I think the world has come to, you know, maybe a place where there's a little bit more of an understanding of, you know, our shared history and maybe even pre-shared history. Also, you know, there's been a lot of attention in media and within different, you know, sometimes unfortunate occurrences that you know, needed to be investigated. But I don't want to digress too much. I just really am grateful that, you know, that we are able to have this discussion today. To me, it really is, you know, moving forward, you know, greater participation with communities, but also with all of you. So I'm just really happy that I'm here, and thank you again for the invitation from the Prairie Joint Venture Policy Network. It's such an honor. Yeah, so yeah, so my background is in earth science. I have a bachelor degree from the University of Calgary. I'm also I've recently applied to the University of Alberta, and there's a research program that we're going to be working on at the Hayzama Wetland Complex in northwest Alberta. And we're going to be looking at doing some hydrology, water quality, looking at different sub-regions within the watershed of the Hay River, and looking at, you know, are there you know, information that wasn't available before. So I'm really excited about doing that research here in the spring. It's a 2-year part-time program, so I'll still be able to work with my community here and there. But I'm really looking forward to being as inclusive as we possibly can, and making sure that as many people as we can are involved that want to be. And I think that's increasingly the goal that I see with conservation is there's so much good work being done in so many different localities, but also so many different disciplines. And, the technology, even since when I started this 12 years ago, has evolved where we now have, Zoom meetings. We didn't have that before. And so just the opportunity to collaborate and share information, and also hopefully have information, emergent properties within our different disciplines becoming more apparent. So, and I've got a good example of that. I know it sounds a bit weird, but it's always better to have an example maybe of how we can collaborate, and what new things that we can discover that we might not have been able to discover just on our own. So yeah, anyways, yeah, so my name's Matt Munson. My Dene name is Eve Claustedzina. I'm a technician for Denida First Nation, and I'm also a band member, and we are members of Treaty 8 in Alberta here. Yeah, so that's my introduction. I also really like going camping, and I play rec hockey in Edmonton here. So yeah, anyways, that's a little bit about me. So what I'll do is I'll just share my presentation screen here. I do have some videos. I'm gonna try to show a video that is, I believe there's captions on it, first of all. And so this video is what we had prepared for the Conference of the Parties meeting 15, the Convention on Biodiversity. So we were able to attend as a delegation, an observer organization to the COP15, and we ended up doing 3 presentations at COP15 about Bistcho Lake in Alberta here, and really looking forward to setting a really good example of a relatively undisturbed area that doesn't have a lot of economic potential for forestry, oil and gas, or mining or other things. And also that, looking at what the agreement, the Montreal Agreement on Biodiversity, looking at their targets and goals, we're really aligning with, one of the central themes that came out of COP15 was, having more Indigenous-led conservation locally and regionally, simply because, where Indigenous people have been managing landscapes for, many generations, there tends to be greater biodiversity. And so the move from, having a park and protected area where, all the Indigenous people get kicked out and stuff just doesn't seem to work well. So, I would say who better than, than the people that have been living there, maintaining, biodiversity over time, to be leading the co-management with local governments. Anyways, here's the video. I'm just going to do a check. Can you see the video?
Yeah, we can. Yes. Or I can see it anyway. Hope other people can.
Okay, I'm just going to put it full screen here. Okay, yeah, so hopefully that came through. I'm not sure if the audio did, but that video is available on our website. I'm actually going to just share the screen for the website here. Sorry. Okay, and open share tray. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, that's what we presented at COP15. So it was playing. It was actually looping for the entire duration of the conference, which was I don't know 12 days or something like that, and it was in the Canada Pavilion on the big screens, and it was just looping. There was a couple other videos that were looping, but this one was, I think, one of 3 or 4. So there were quite a few people, I think, that stopped and watched it, and that's really good. You know, I would say one of the biggest challenges of doing conservation work is, you know, finding that audience. You know, of course, there's there's people that are, you know, interested and they do their own conservation stuff, and we can talk amongst ourselves. That's super great. But it doesn't always get the attention, you know, in I don't want to say mainstream media, but you know, reaching audience is one of the challenges for sure. And you know, reaching audiences, I think, you know, with, you know, there's a lot of good science that we do, and there's a lot of good, you know, documents that we write and things. But you know, to get the message across is you know, the challenge is to make it catchy, to make it interesting, to make it fun, to get people to care about it on an emotional level. In fact, you know, it seems that our emotional, you know, pre-mammal brains tend to tell us what to do a lot of the time, and if we, you know, can see how, you know, as people in general, you know, people in society, that we're, you know, that what we can do is actually, you know, we can be effective. We can contribute, you know, and sharing that everybody has a stake in this, and invitations for people to be a part of it. That's always important. So for all of you on this call, I would really love to follow up with you at some future point and hear about what you're doing, and if there's things that we might be able to do together. Perhaps some of the methods and approaches you've developed elsewhere could work for us, and maybe some of ours could work for you. So I'm going to get into that a little bit more. So here's the this is the website. This is the homepage. The videos that the video that you just saw is on our webpage. There's also a video that we did in 2020. This was actually during COVID, and we did follow all of the proper health protocols to do this video. And it really I'm not going to show it because it's not captioned and the audio isn't coming through. It doesn't do it justice to not have the audio behind it. But if you are interested later, please check it out. It's bistrolake.ca. This is a 4-minute video. There's also the full version, which is a little bit longer, 8 minutes. It's really, it was just an amazing trip, and it was, you know, my the pinnacle of my academic and working career for sure, to be able to do these videos and share these out with you. I'm not going to show this one either because of the audio issue again, but we were featured on the national CBC. There's a news story that was about the caribou work that we're doing with one of our partners, Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society of Northern Alberta. And that news story is available on the website. There's a link. And the video that I just showed you, the trailer that we showed at Conference of the Parties 15, Convention on Biodiversity, is on the website as well. While I'm plugging things that we've been doing here, there's also CPAWS has a page here, and there's an article with the Alberta Wildlife Association that Philip Meinzer and I and some of our partners put together, mostly Philip. And this was about the trip that we took, where that the video I just showed you is from. So this gives a little bit more of a description into you know, what we did and what we're doing and why we're doing it and what we would like to see come out of it. And it's pretty simple. You know, we just want the lake and the watershed to remain in good shape. It's in good shape now, and we just want to keep it that way, and we want to be able to be part of that process. So that it's pretty simple. It's really simple. So I'm going to actually get into I'm going to get into the presentation now. So I'm going to switch over the screen share. Okay, I'm going to do another check. Can you see the title page?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so as you can see on the date here, originally we were going to do this in June of last year, but I can't remember exactly what happened. I think people were busy and you know, start of summer and everything, but that's okay. So we can do it now. So presenters, I just wanted to acknowledge Fred Dzina. He's the director of the Lands Department for Denethor First Nation, and his work is really you know, critical for you know, making sure that the direction of the videos and all of the work that we're doing aligns with what the community wants. Also, he is able to interface with our leadership. So we have a chief and council, and I probably don't have to tell everyone here, but you know, there's a lot of kind of top-down questions and interactions that happen with you know, within governments, and you know, our politicians you know, are directly answerable to our community, and they have questions. So he really does almost you know, free up space for, you know, the technicians to actually do the work. Otherwise, we'd be spending most of our time answering you know, individual questions from our own community. So yeah, Fred is not able to make it today, but he certainly has been, without him, we would not be able to do this. As you notice here, CPAWS is also, their logo is on this title slide, and we have developed many grant proposals in collaboration with CPAWS, and part of the deal is that they help us out with the work plan and also share in some of the budget. So really good partnership with CPAWS that we've had for many years. We certainly have other partners, and we always would love to have more. So. Okay, I'm going to I'm just going to describe Indigenous protected and conserved area. So I'm not going to read off of slides. I actually don't like that. I don't like that very much. Indigenous protected and conserved area is pretty much an internal government-ish term. We didn't come up with that acronym. We're finding actually quite a bit of resistance to that name within provincial and territorial governments. When it comes to the Natural Resource Transfer Act and constitutional jurisdiction to develop minerals and however they see fit. This idea of protection and conservation and making it area based and having Indigenous communities sharing in decision making, that runs contrary to how things have been done probably up till now and still now. I'm not here to offer a political opinions, as far as my community and my nation is concerned. We have government to government relations with Alberta. It doesn't matter so much who what particular party is sitting in the big chair. We need to be doing these things regardless of kind of the ebbs and flows and tides of political parties. So certainly, if we've heard pretty loud and clear that even this name causes a little bit of pushback and to be honest, a little bit of probably fear, a little bit of what is this all about? Is are you going to put up a giant fence and keep everyone out? Or are you going to kick farmers off the land or shut down sawmills and gas plants? Well, the answer is no. That's not what any of this is about. It is about conservation. It is about making sure that we have places that are still really good to exercise treaty rights. Those treaty rights are hunting, fishing, and trapping. Also food and medicinal gathering and any kind of incidental activity that supports those. So it could be cabin building, it could be accessing areas that we need to go to from the community, and that's what this is about. This is a very text-heavy slide. There's a quote from the Indigenous Circle of Experts. The Indigenous Circle of Experts was a group put together by the federal government. This is coming out of previous Conference of the Parties commitments where the government of Canada agreed to a target to conserve, I think, I can't even remember now, 25% of land and water by 2025, and more recently the commitment was 30% by 2030. So that's what Canada just agreed to in Montreal in December. Again, is the commitment for 30% conservation by 2030. And so one of the pathways, it's actually called Pathway to Canada Target 1. And one of the pathways is Indigenous-led long-term commitments to conservation, and those Indigenous-led conservation areas also elevate Indigenous rights, and the key here is responsibility. So having a right is only meaningful insofar as that you're able to exercise that right, and with rights come responsibilities. There's reciprocal obligations and cultural imperatives that we must, in fact, steward the environment and species, simply if for no other reason that without them we would not be here. Indigenous led, here's Charlie and Roy and Wilfred, and we're at the lake and we're doing some mapping here. We're finding out what areas are important and why. What makes them important? Could be, could be a specific habitat for caribou. It could be, this is a good moose browsing area. It could be this is a travel route. Any kind of topological, geographic, kind of spatial place-based. Could be a specific site, like a point. It could be a trail, like a line. It could be a network of trails and points. It could also be, an area that encloses, trails and points, but also it could be, area that could be a watershed, for example. So these are basically, we want to find out what is important for the community. Long-term commitments to conservation. That is pretty self-explanatory. So we don't really, we wouldn't prefer for example, in Alberta, in the land disposition process, they can have connotative notation designations or protective notation designations, and those are really administrative. They're not through the Alberta Parks Act, for example, and so, there are different levels of, what government can, how they classify and what protections come with them. And so long-term commitments, we would think that would go beyond an administrative, boundary, but, or sorry, I'm getting a little bit down a rabbit hole here. Anyways, we are looking for, some really strong commitments and some, actual designations through the Lands Act that, the boundaries within are going to be managed differently than without, and that activities within are less impactful than without. So does that mean less roads? Yep. Less oil and gas? Yep. Less forestry? Yes. Does it mean not allowing any of those things? No. We, if the core outcomes of habitats and species and environmental quality can be maintained or not impacted greatly unsustainably, then that's a conversation as well. There also can be combinations of kind of no-go areas, actually, where nothing can be developed in association with areas where less, but maybe some can be developed. And so when we're doing our community mapping, we're looking at, what areas really should be off limits for, resource development, which is, requires a bunch of roads and stuff. And then which ones, are kind of in the area, but less perhaps imperative. In a Canadian context, there are other examples of this type of proposal. There are, I'm not going to get into them, but I'm sure you've heard there was announcements made at COP15 by Federal Minister of Environment Stephen Guilbeault, and those were quite large. In fact, there's four IPCA type programs that are going to be funded in Canada to the tune of $800 million. So that's, 200 million each. One of these is in Northwest Territories, and I think it's the Nahanni. I can't remember exactly park. And so, Bistcho Lake, unfortunately, wasn't one of those that was funded, but there are other commitments here to do some of the on the ground things. And I really want to make it clear that conservation isn't just putting a line on a map. Conservation isn't just monitoring species and taking caribou pictures. That is not going to protect these. What it is doing things differently, having local people, and it's not just Indigenous people, but local people, or even non-local but interested people, coming together, making sure that we're essentially implementing an adaptive management plan. And so Adaptive management plans, there's a lot of good literature on them. Typically, they're kind of a 6 or 7 step cycle, improvement over time, monitoring, and if indicators are coming out of their ideal range, then there perhaps could be management actions that could occur. So, for example, easy one, linear restoration. There's a lot of seismic lines in the northern boreal forest from oil and gas that could be reclaimed. Things like that. But also, sometimes the conversation gets a little bit more challenging when we're talking about prioritizing species over others. So, the caribou conversation, we know that wolves predate on caribou, and wolves can access caribou habitat more easily through disturbances by humans. And, what to do when, maybe we restore some linear disturbance, but of course, trees take 40 years to kind of make it look like the footprint is gone. Some of the government methods include poisoning, and that certainly is not a traditional practice. So what might we do there? Perhaps it's selectively harvesting wolves for their fur and making clothing out of them or something like that, as opposed to if deemed necessary to take some of the pressure off caribou by reducing the number of wolves. Having a voice in co-management means we could say, look, we don't want you to go in and drop a bunch of poisoned meat, strychnine, on the wolf den, and the wolves have this very difficult death. That's not our way. So perhaps there's things like that come about as management actions, where perhaps we're selectively traditionally harvesting animals that for example, but this is a conversation, of course, that we're not having right now. Simply the Alberta government, in our case, isn't interested in working with us on these issues. The government's plan right now is to simply administer the Bistcho sub-regional plan, and the sub-regional plan is geared. It's a development plan, setting out maximum road densities and encouraging aggregate forestry practices to consolidate cut blocks all over the place into one giant cut block, for example, sweep across the whole range. And as the development wave, cuts down every tree in the range, 40 years later, they're saying it's going to be good caribou habitat. And, that's kind of the government approach to removing the linear disturbance to meet the federal recovery strategy targets. And there's a pretty big assumptions there, let me tell you. And so, we definitely would like to have a voice in that conversation, and perhaps working with forestry companies and oil and gas companies, there could be a solution where, that might not be the only approach. This slide is you can't really see it. I don't know why it's blurry here, but there are a lot of place names here. We've done a lot of traditional use study mapping here. This map, in fact, on the right was what we developed for the Royal Alberta Museum exhibit. And so if you go, I think it's on the 4th floor in the Indigenous history section, you'll see a big map on the wall, and our place names, some of them are on that map. So when we're doing our traditional use studies, that's just one of the many outputs that we have. I think I'm going to speed up the pace here. So here's I am going to spend a bit of time here. Traditional use. So archaeology. If you look at the map here, we actually have been working with Alberta Culture for years on finding sites, archaeological sites around the lake. And so on this, you'll see the dots. Those are dig sites that are listed within the Alberta Historic Resource Inventory Act. And so these are protected. But we've also been successful in having area-based cultural protections within the legislation on the entire shoreline of the lake, and all of the islands within the lake proper are now are designated archaeological sites and areas. So this was really really a big win, and a lot of recognition that comes with it, with having these sites identified. And so that does offer some level of protection as well. They're not no-go zones. Simply they trigger a more in-depth consultation process, and also trigger the need for actual field work to happen before any development could be approved. This is a messy map of our traditional use study information. So I am the data custodian, so I'm the traditional use study steward for my nation. One of the things that I started doing 10 years ago was gathering up all of the documents, maps, manuscripts, interviews that we could find, through previous studies, academic studies, could be consultants came in, it could be for an environmental assessment process, etc. And one of my interests at university was geographic information system science. And so I spent as many of my hours and days and years in the GIS lab. And so I was able to, with some help, create a file geodatabase. I'm not going to get too technical, but we have an electronic archive, a spatial archive of, over 10,000 points. I think there's about 2,000 trails or lines, and we have close to 20,000 areas or polygons in our traditional use study database. Some of them are duplicate and just kind of share maybe one or two, there's one or two unique attributes, but the rest are shared. So, but still a really lot of information that we've been able to document and archive. It's not a new thing to propose an Indigenous protected and conserved area type designation. Actually, in the 30s, there was a government actually proposed internally to have a hunting reserve for First Nations. And the reason that this hunting reserve was proposed was back then, kind of in some of the darkest eras of the Indian Act and how that was implemented, there was a pass system in place. And so First Nation people were not allowed to leave the boundary of the reserve, and the reserves were too small to support all of the wildlife and country foods that we needed, and we were in fact starving, and we were losing people from starvation on our own reserve simply because we weren't allowed to leave. There might be a moose that you can see off in the distance, but you can't go and get it. So it was not a good, wasn't good. And so, there was a proposal, made 100 years ago, 90 years ago, in recognition that this is important. So, so this is a picture. We have cabins on our lake. This is our reserve cabins. This is going to be the one of the destinations for our heritage trail network and cabin network. So what we're proposing is we're going to be having a trail that is winter access only, and we're going to be maintaining that as part of our way to reduce it. While it sounds counterintuitive, what we're trying to do is have no all-season access, like no high-grade road built to the lake, but in exchange, we would maintain a winter access. So, not to cut off this area of the province, to permanently. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that in too much detail. I do want to get to the caribou program. I really think this is, some of the funnest, most exciting things, and it's not, it's not like legal or, it's not legal or administrative in nature. Talking about maps and boundaries can get a bit dry after a while. So I just want to get into this. So here's some pictures from our camera array. I've got some better ones I'm going to show you. This is some of the mapping we do. So I created these maps that we can mark up and then scan into the computer and then digitize, kind of using a heads up digitizing process within the GIS program, and create spatial data that is added to our our traditional use study geodatabase. On my left here, we have the late Willie Chambeau, and you can see that he's marking up this map very, very precisely and accurately. So just for example, the trail system on the south side of the lake, most people, when they're drawing trails, they're just, putting the pen down and, dragging it across the page, and here's the line. Willie is remembering in his experience, he grew up on the lake as a kid. He remembers hunting beavers in the winter because they were traveling, and they had to, of course, catch food as they went. And he remembers beaver tail. He was telling me tasted like, bubble gum today for the kids. Beaver tail, because it's really fatty and chewy. So anyways, this is how, this is what his lived experience looks like on a map. And he is putting, it's kind of like pointillism here. He's making the line, which is the trail, and in his mind, he's remembering from the landmarks on the map. He's remembering, his journey back to the community to the south. So it's really, really neat. And he's also marking up. We asked him, about caribou. Where do caribou like to be, and what do they do, and how do they move about? And so he's also marking up that. And to the next slide here. So this is a really, this is not the entirety of what Willie marked up, but this is, some of the trends that we put together. And if you notice here, there's some recommendations that Willie made for where we should put some cameras. And we were able to put cameras at some of these. But here's the thing, is when you're developing a, kind of a scientific method for, doing things like, statistical analyses and summaries, you certainly don't want to only select camera locations where you're going to find caribou, because that's not really useful when it comes to setting up a rationale as to why we should be protecting some core habitat areas as opposed to elsewhere. And so what we did here was we went through the different classes of habitats that we know caribou prefer through the literature, and then also identified, generally what is, the habitat on the landscape in terms of vegetation cover. What is it? Is it deciduous or coniferous leading? Is it how old is the stand, for example, and that kind of thing. And we also, so we developed a caribou camera array. There's 36 cameras. And as you can see on the left, we did some stratified random samples. I can't remember what the exact. I'm not a biologist, but there was a couple of Willie's camera locations, and mostly done the scientific way. I'm going to show you a little bit about this app here in a minute. But we had So Environment Canada through the Nature Fund, this was, I think, around a $3 billion fund that came out in 2018, I think, in response to one of the federal one of the international Conference of the Parties commitments. I think it was Target 1 anyways. So how to meet Target 1, and what type of supports do local communities, including Indigenous communities, need to get this conservation happening. And one of the grants that we wrote was about developing a survey app. So within Esri's, if you're a GIS person, within Esri's ArcMap and Arc Online suite of software products, there's an application called Survey 123. And this application can sit on anyone's smartphone. You can download it from the Google store or sorry, yeah, Android or Apple. And if you have the right subscription and credentials that you can get from Esri, you can sign in. And so what we have is we've met with our community members many times, and we came up with lists of things that you can find out on the land that are important to the community. And so here you have you can see on the right hand screenshot, we have buckets. So we said, well, there's cultural footprint things. So there's cabins and camps and medicine bundles and grave sites and these kind of more or less Deneda built up sites. And then there's of course animals. And so when you click on when you're using the app in the field and it's like a touch screen thing, you push the animal button and then a drop down menu comes up and it shows you is it mammals, is it fish, is it birds, and then we've got lists from the community of all the different types. And so you simply are using your smartphone and selecting what it is that you're finding out on the landscape. And then there's a description, a text, you just like you're texting your friend, put it in, and you're able to take pictures and record audio within the app. And so what I really like about this app is if somebody can use a modern day phone, they can become an expert in collecting accurate spatial data in the field and having that data already pre-structured, using the classification system that the community members themselves came up with. Like, this isn't a list from the textbook of mammals in northern Alberta. This is what the community members said. And so just Matt, the ability to do that.
Just gonna jump in here very rudely, but to say we got about 10 minutes left. So if you want to save a little time for questions, just to kind of, thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
No worries. No, that's good. Thanks for the reminder. I can talk for way too long on these. This is an animation from one of our caribou cameras. And you can see here that none of these animals are collared. And so typically when government will go out and do surveys for caribou populations, they'll do aerial counts, and they'll also do, when they can, putting radio collars on female of calf-bearing age. And so in here we have females of calf-bearing age, we have young, and none of them are collared. And so here's a gap that we've identified in government data. This is one of the places that Willie said to go, and sure enough, here they are. And what was really interesting to us is that none of these would appear on the government data. So it's just showing how we kind of almost need to be working together, because like I said, who better to do this work than the people that are already there? We don't have to fly in from Edmonton. We're already there. We can do this easily. This is this is from the island. So there was an island I showed you here. This island. What's really striking about this is This island is actually being used as a maternal calving. It's like a natural predator refuge. And so when expectant mothers are ready to give birth, they come to this island and raise their calves for the first spring, summer, fall, and then they leave. But what's really striking is if you see this island here, it doesn't look like a lot of distance on the map, but this is considerable. Like just to have an animal swim across, you know, an expectant mother or with young calf, I think would be quite a challenge. And so if you see this this formation here, this is an esker. So the Bistcho Lake is actually a glacial remnant lake. A big chunk of glacier got stuck here and just melted. So the lake was left behind. And the retreating glaciers left these striations. And so one of these striations actually is part of the island. And going up here with boats, we go in little kind of fishing boats, you know, 15 horsepower motors. We're going to get new boats here soon. But one of the things we need to watch out for is always in here, there's rock ledges and they'll take your prop off your boat. And you're, you know, this is a 2-day paddle back to the lodge, you know, if you don't have a motor. So we need to be really careful. But what Willie was telling us is that the caribou are using the rock ledge. And so if you can imagine, you know, standing on the shore, you can't see a submerged rock ledge, but the caribou know it's there. They use it to get to the island. And so what we think we've discovered here is intergenerational learning. So intergenerational knowledge transfer on the maternal side for boreal caribou. You know, how would the next generation know, you know, that this is how to get to the island and that this is a good place to have their own families, you know, unless this was passed down. The knowledge of these rock ledges on how to get there was being passed down intergenerationally. So this is really important, I think, just in the story of the lake here, that, you know, it's not only humans that have culture here. When you look at, you know, this island being home, right? This is the family home. This is the intergenerational home, and the secret of you know, how to get there and you know, is passed down on the mother's side. It's quite amazing. Right, I do want to show you here. That's the end of the slideshow. I'm just going to take 5 minutes to show you the some of the pictures that came from our cameras this year. Thank you for your patience.
This is great. And for those that have to leave, feel free. But for those that want to stay a little longer, feel free as well.
Okay, here's some pictures. I hope you can see them. This is some of the field work. We're in helicopters. The snow actually goes up to your armpits up here. So having snowshoes is good. We tried snowshoes from Cabela's and they weren't doing very well. So we commissioned traditionally made snowshoes and they seem to be working better, in fact, and they're lighter. They're more suitable for this work. We have caribou twins here. So this one is called Bistcho and this one is Beha. So Bistcho means big knife in Dene, and the lake is actually called Big Knife because it looks like a knife from, you know, from the high vantage points. And Becha means little knife. So we have our two caribou mascots here. They're twins. We're looking into the literature about, you know, how rare are caribou twins, and they're very rare. And it turns out they're very indicative of overall environmental health and health of the herd. If we're getting twins, you know, those animals that are at the site that Willie noted are doing really well. Really cool. We're not just only getting caribou. We actually have a moose fight. Two bulls were fighting here in front of our camera perfectly. Is amazing. a lot of other animals, moose here. We've got some wolves here. There's a wolf pack, a white wolf, albino wolf, little marmot, and other things. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's probably good. I'm just gonna maybe just show you here just the back end of our app data here. Oh. Okay, so this is an ARC Online, and we have a hosted cloud database. So when people are in the field and they're using their phones and they're ready to send their information, as long as they're connected to their own data plan and cell network, this goes through the internet, their data connection, and automatically uploads their sites, their surveys to our consolidated cloud based database. So there was actually data coming in from this morning that I haven't even looked at. So one of the main big powers of this kind of tool is that it really reduces collecting the data collection process. It's anyone can be a data technician now.
Basically,
here-
Jeff was just asking about how he can help.
Like we have an audio on somewhere along the way.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I just yeah, maybe good time for questions now. Thank you. There's a lot more I could get into, but
No, this is amazing. Thank you so much, Matt, for your time, and it sort of blows the mind the work that you've done and the wonderful collaboration and just initiative that you've done in that area. So thank you for that and for sharing with us. We really appreciate that. There is time for questions, of course. Feel free to bow out if you need, but we have one question from Christian Artuso from ECCC in the chat box, just asking about, I guess you can see it, Matt, but is there a name other than IPCA that you would like to see used, or the communities in the Denethal would like to see used?
yeah, that's a good question. I'm actually trying to figure that one out with our team and partners now. So especially in Alberta, as you know, there's this Sovereignty Act now, and kind of anything federal is suspect. Especially, before the Sovereignty Act stuff came about, there were already concerns about the name. It really is. I think so. When I read the Indigenous Circle of Experts We Rise Together report, where the IPCA acronym came from, they developed it as a general term that could be applied locally, and they're not a one size fits all idea. It's supposed to be implemented locally, and regionally and jurisdictionally. So I don't know. I think what we're going to move towards for our conservation proposals is something more like, collaborative, or I don't know, along with the themes of, collaboration and sharing and conservation and species protection and recovery. I think those things resonate with the general public more. And, it will be Indigenous led. It will lead to long-term commitments. It will elevate rights and responsibilities of First Nation people. So, the outcome doesn't need to be prescribed by the name. So I think we might just simply call it, a Bistcho, Bistcho Lake Watershed, conservation initiative. I have no idea, but I'm thinking we might actually start a not-for-profit society, and perhaps even, just kind of do the things that we're doing anyways, but, have it local and make sure that we're talking to the municipalities, we're talking to the industry there, we're talking to the snowmobile club, we're talking to the trappers and you know, like just anybody that has an interest on the land. We want to connect with them in ways that are important to them. You know, if they're worried about trapping, it's good because you know, they need animals to trap. If they're worried about you know, how local forestry practices might be less here, but perhaps even it increases certainty elsewhere. You know what I mean? There's always a give and take, and also you know, some things can be negotiated. And so hopefully, once you've talked to all of the partners and interest holders, that you've still got a collection of really important things that people can agree on. And then you move to, okay, we've agreed on this. Now, what are we going to do about it as a group, as opposed to, you know, people just saying no because instead of yes if.
No, thank you. Great answer. Appreciate that. Words matter, don't they? But they're very tricky to nail down. Graham Strickert, you had a question.
Yeah, thanks, John and Matt. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Matt, really awesome presentation and really incredible work. I wonder if you or your nation have provided any support to other communities who are going down this path, who may be, you know, a decade behind where you're at, so that it's more of a, you know, nation to nation collaboration rather than, you know, coming from like settler communities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, recently we've become members of the steering committee of the Northern Boreal Caribou Knowledge Consortium. It's quite an acronym. It's quite a name. But they're through Environment Canada, and they're I believe there's 30 or 40, I can't remember the number, nations that are doing caribou work across the nation. And we're looking at developing a pilot project and, you know, selecting 5 of the communities that want to, you know, bring in what we've done with just, you know, the application, the you know, the data collector, work with their community, develop, you know, lists of things that they that are important to them, and then also you know, bring in some of the methods that we've applied to kind of have traditional knowledge informing into scientific you know, design of, for example, a remote camera array or something like that. So yeah, there is a lot of interest in the app, especially, and then also the videos. So we work with a videographer out of BC, Jeremy Williams is his name, and what we're hoping to do is within these pilot programs, document the journey on how we came about, you know, developing the app, but also have documented, we're going to use the app and train community members on it, and they'll have the video of that they can share with their community, and also some of the training that goes into, you know, how to use the app, and also how to create data out of it. Also, I just have to say, like, I don't want to plug anything, but I do have a company that I've started. It's called TK Array. It's at tkarray.ca, and we consult and, you know, could potentially have clients that we would develop this same you know, GIS application.
Great, thanks. No worries about a shameless plug, Matt. That's always fine. So, maybe one more question just to sort of honor folks' time this morning. If there's one more, anyone else? Okay. Otherwise, I think we'll wrap up here. But as I mentioned in the chat, if any of you would like to reach out directly with Matt, I'm more than happy to connect you. You have my email address, so you just shoot me a note and we can I can connect you. And again, just want to really thank you, Matt, for your time. We come from a lot of different areas of Prairie, Canada, and from here in Treaty 6, it's really great to hear the work doing and happening in Treaty 8. And I want to say too, over the next couple months, the Prairie Habitat joint venture covers the Western Boreal Forest and the sort of the Prairie region. And so my hope is to have some more webinars sort of highlighting Indigenous conservation initiatives across the region this coming winter and spring. So, but thank you, Matt. Really appreciate your time, and we'll give that round of applause that we're all doing it silently or else on little clapping hand emojis. But thank you for your time, and I wish all of you a wonderful day and yeah, a good weekend too. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.